Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Prevrajakacharya Stotar Shishimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Prevrajakacharya Stotar Shishimad Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnamin Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Harims Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Navdeep Dham Ki Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Sambeta Bhakta Vrinda Ki. Oh, glorious to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Haribo. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here at the home of Damodar Vamsidhari Prabhu. And my name is Vaisesika Dasa. This is my wife, Nirakula Devi Dasi. We both are from America, and we've been married for 39 years. Before that, as in our youth, we both, although we didn't know each other, we came to a similar conclusion, which was that we wanted to find out the purpose of life. I'm from California, she's from New York. And when I was a child, I used to ask my parents why I had to die. And they had no idea. So I asked my brother what death was. And he said, it's nothing. You just become nothing. And I didn't like that either. Thank you. Hare Krishna. When I was a teenager, I was given a copy of the Bhagavad Gita by a friend of mine. I was a junior in high school at the time. And it was just the translations of the Bhagavad Gita. And it was the first time that I could understand that there was a source of knowledge that answered all questions, especially the ones I had. I read in that Bhagavad Gita about the three modes of material nature. I read about how the soul is superior energy. Consciousness is above matter. How there are material elements, earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. But besides these, there's a para prakriti, or a superior energy, which is soul. I learned what reincarnation meant. I had heard it from my mother just as a kind of passing philosophical observation when I was a kid. She had told me about people in India, Hindus, who believed in reincarnation. And I said, what is that? And she said, well, they believe that people can come back as different entities, including ants and so forth. I never looked at ants the same way after that. But there was a lot of misinformation, as there is even today. But the Bhagavad Gita was very straightforward. And I can remember reading the Universal Form chapter 11, and being thrilled in hearing it, how the gigantic form of the Lord encompassed the universe and into whom all entities flowed. And soon after that, I came in contact with my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, through a magazine called Back to Godhead. Again, it was the benefit I received from a friend who had also given me the Back to Godhead magazine. That's why, even to this day, when I go to distribute books to people, I always remember what happened to me, that I didn't receive it directly. A friend got it, and the second friend who gave me the magazine said that he wasn't interested. He had given a donation to a monk, and he brought it to my house. He said, I know you're interested in this. Even today, every once in a while I call him and thank him.
Wow.
I told him he's my Vartmana Pradashaka Guru, the one who introduced me to my spiritual master. And he told me once, he said, I'll probably never do anything good in my life, but one thing, I made you a Hare Krishna. And in that magazine, called Back to Godhead magazine, I saw an advertisement for the book called Easy Journey to Other Planets. And I thought that would be a great idea to get out of high school. I also saw an advertisement for Sri Upanishad. And it said that the ancient Upanishads say that the Supreme Absolute Truth, God, is a person. That's the first time I ever heard that, because everyone else equivocates on that. The Mayavadis definitely do. But even in Christianity, and I wasn't a Christian, I wasn't anything, my parents were academics. And although I'd heard about Christianity, of course seen it around, I come from a mainly Christian country, no one could ever decide whether Jesus was God or the Son of God. And I certainly couldn't figure it out. So the straightforwardness of those advertisements attracted me. And I went to a bookstore. I wasn't old enough to drive, but my mom helped me out. She took me to Shambhala Books in Berkeley, California. It's right next to the University of California at Berkeley. It was a bookstore that carried exclusively carried spiritual books. So I went there and I asked them if they had any more books by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, and they had the Bhagavad Gita as it is, Sri Upanishad, and a book called On the Way to Krishna. And I bought those 3 books and read them over and over again. And then I was able to go and visit the Hare Krishna temple. My mother took me there and dropped me off for a Sunday program. And I remember coming home, driving across the Bay Bridge towards our house, and my ears were still ringing from the kartals. And I had one thought in my mind. I said, I want to be in that. So I told my parents, I said, I have an idea. I'd like to join the Hare Krishna movement. And they said, well, first, you should finish high school, and when you're 18, then you can make up your own mind. But it was summer, 1973. I was 16. And they said, well, you can try it for the summer. But I didn't leave. And thanks to my parents, I have great gratitude towards them. They didn't coerce me to leave either. They realized that I was happy there as a brahmachari, and they allowed me to stay in the Hare Krishna movement, which I did. Lived in an ashram for 13 years. Till I was 29, And then through an arranged marriage, I met Nirkula. And she has a kind of interesting story about how she joined. In some ways it's parallel, but I'll let her tell her own version of it. Will this go? Will this make it over there? Okay.
Krishna, thank you all for coming. It's so nice to be here with you. So, as my husband said, we have some similarities in coming to Krishna consciousness. We came at about the same age, though we didn't know each other. I was in California at the time, and it was...
Well, tell how you got to California. Got to do a little coaching here. That's interesting, how you got to California.
In a 1955 Mercury. I drove cross country with some friends from Brooklyn. It was the hippie era in 1972. And so, growing up in Brooklyn, the thing to do, if you were a hippie, was to visit San Francisco, California. So we drove across the country, it was 5 of us, and we stayed in San Francisco only for a brief period of time. It had turned into a not so nice kind of movement. There was a lot of drugs and things like that, and that's not what we were searching for. So we were searching for answers to our questions. I was raised in Catholicism. I was a Catholic. I went to Catholic school. And there was a lot about Catholicism that I liked. It taught about getting to know, learned to know God, to love Him, and to serve Him. That was one of the things I was taught. But there wasn't enough information about who God was, what He'd like me to do for Him, things like that. And there was always this thing about if you didn't know about Jesus, you would not be saved. And I couldn't imagine a God who would be so, in my young mind, cruel, that if someone didn't know about Jesus, they got one life to figure it out, and then if that didn't work, they weren't going to be saved. So anyway, Satsvarup Maharaj was traveling around with a couple of brahmacharis, and he was doing college programs and some home programs. And because we were searching and there was a lot going on with different yogis and things like that, we saw the ad for Satsvarup Maharaj's program. And one of the books I had been reading at the time was called Autobiography of a Yogi. Any of you heard of that? Yeah. And he talked about his guru living in the Himalayas and living on light. And that did not appeal to me. So when I came to Krishna consciousness, or I found out about Krishna consciousness through Satsvarup Maharaj, and there was chanting and dancing and feasting, and there was actually service that anybody could come and do. And then there were the books that Prabhupada had written and translated that answered all of my questions, and questions I didn't even know I had. And so I was immediately enthralled. And so 5 of our friends, we were in the Santa Cruz area, which is just south of San Francisco, and Satsvarup Maharaj thought it would be good for us to visit Los Angeles. So we all piled into a van with no seats and just a van in the back, and he brought us down to Los Angeles for a visit. And 6 of us went and 5 of us stayed. And we all joined, and eventually got initiated, because, as I said, it had, the philosophy was there, it was explained, it was accessible, and there was service we could do. And so I came, and I haven't left, not yet.
Whoa. Hari, Hari.
How did the arranged marriage happen?
Yeah, the arranged marriage happened because I was 29 years old, and some friends of mine came to visit me at the ashram. I think that's got to be turned off. Thank you. And it was kind of like an intervention. I think 5 or 6 grihasta friends of mine, devotees, and they said, we've had a conference and we think it's time for you to get married. They said, we've talked it over a lot, and you're 29 years old. This is probably the best time for you to make a transition. So I said, all right. And then they had a chaperone, Radhapati Prabhu. Well, actually, they didn't have anybody picked out for me at that time, so they were kind of surprised that I agreed with them. And then they had a conference, and they figured out that there was maybe a match. And so they, through shuttle diplomacy, they confirmed. And so she cooked me a dinner, and I went over to her house, her place. It was right next to the temple, with a chaperone. And we all sat and talked, and then it was a good dinner. Convinced me. Still remember that. Yeah, it was a big transformation, because bringing brahmachari for 13 years is a lot of training and determination in that direction. But the course of my life, I could tell, now I'm 69 years old, I can see there have been different eras in my life, and I can identify them as individual units where I've felt compelled towards certain lifestyles. Of course, it's always been the lifestyle of Hare Krishna, but the wisdom of the process is that in Varnashrama, there is a suitable ashram for one to accommodate each part of one's life. And it felt sanguine for me at that time. And we associated for a year. We read the Mahabharata together and things like that. And then we had the wedding at the temple, which was really nice, because then family members came. And what I've noticed over the years, one of the best places for people who are not accustomed to the Hare Krishna movement to get acquainted is at a wedding. Because people feel, if anybody asks them, what were you doing at a Hare Krishna temple? He says, it's a wedding, I had to go. And we've seen over time that at weddings, people are a little open-minded. And of course, my parents were really happy that I was getting married. And they thought, finally, some normalcy coming out. Yeah, it's like a big deal, and they liked her a lot, so that was good too. And it was a Vedic wedding in front of the deities in Los Angeles, New Dwarka. We had a priest who's a devotee named Gaurkeshava Prabhu, who's lived in South India for years and studied every mantra and ritual possible. So when we asked him for a wedding, he said, do you want a 21-day wedding, 7-day wedding, 3-day wedding? What do you want? And I said, we'll just take a couple hours, if you don't mind. And that went on for like 4 hours, because he had so many little things he was doing. He wanted to even light the fire by mantra. He had some special trick. Anyway, it was good for us, because then after she lived in an ashram as we called brahmacharini Prabhupada started that ashram, and I lived as a brahmachari. And we really learned that we didn't need anything, that we were satisfied just having service and friends and having prasadam with devotees, a very joyful life. And then that was helpful because we had that base understanding when we got married. And we also were clear, we talked to each other a lot about why we were getting married, that our goals were to help each other to advance spiritually, and that to help each other in this lifetime go back to Godhead. So that was nice. And we kind of started with nothing because I didn't collect anything. And we joined when I was 16, so, and then I may have had a toothbrush or something. And then we had to do normal things. And I remember the first time I signed up for an apartment and realized that they were kind of expensive. But that was just the beginning, because then I was like, you got to pay for phone service? Back then there were no cell phones. Hate to shock anybody, but they were just, the kind with a wire that goes to the wall. And you had to pay for all that stuff, and I started adding it all up, and I thought, no wonder people work so hard. You got to pay for all this stuff. But it's been a great lesson. And now we're in a stage of life where we're divesting. We're both retired. We both started our own businesses and ran them for years. And then we gradually phased out of all that. And now our lives are dedicated to cultivating spiritual knowledge and sharing it with everyone. And now if you have any questions, then we'll just have a discussion. What do you think? I give 1,000 rupees for every bad question. I have to check and see if I have it. Yeah, go ahead. See if you can win 1,000 rupees.
That's a lot of inspiration.
Huh?
That's a lot of inspiration.
To get the 1,000 rupees?
हिंदी में पूछ सकते हैं अगर किसी को है, अदरवाइज कीर्तन करेंगे. Yes? आपको कोई है? कोई किसका?
Yes, Prabhu.
वृंदावन.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, you have mentioned that 39 years in the Grihastha life now, and today's days and age, many couples, it might look fantastic to live together such a long time. We see the surrounded atmosphere, the family life is becoming difficult. So, with your experience in Krishna consciousness and practical family life also, if you can share the principles of Grihastha ashram.
Was that a question?
So that was a request, if you could help us share some principles of Grihastha.
Oh, some principles.
Yeah.
Okay, you start.
See, that's one of the principles. Well, as Prabhu mentioned, we talked a lot about what our goals were, before getting married. We wanted to make sure that we were in sync, what we wanted to do with our lives, how we wanted to serve our Gurudev and the mission. And we found that we had a lot of things in common. Of course, when you're young and you get married, you don't know what's going to happen down the road. So we have always kept Krishna in the center. Whatever was best for our service to our Gurudev and helping us to remember Krishna and serve Krishna, that's how we made our decisions, whatever was best for our service. And, you know, through life, we all have big decisions to make, right? I don't know why this is... And so we've always made we've always made those big decisions on what was best for our service. And I guess some of the principles are learning how to communicate well with each other, to understand that we're in each other's corner. We support each other, we have each other's back, so to speak. It's a rough world out there. And you want to know that when you come home, you know, you have someone who's there to support you, and I don't mean, you know, just to say you're always right or something like that, but to show love and support and learn how to communicate with each other so that you understand what each other is saying, because we have different ways of communicating. And that was, I think in the first year or two of our marriage, that was the thing that we worked on the most was clear and honest communication. And we have disagreements. We don't have fights, but we have disagreements, and we can work them out. We can talk it out, and I feel really fortunate to have someone who has that mentality. And so, as I said, but the big thing was making sure that our goals were in line, and that we stayed true to those goals, and it's worked well for us.
It's also, we found it helpful to have programs at our house. For many, many years, we held programs where we invited people to come over, and Nirkula would cook for them. I'd conduct the programs for hearing and chanting, and just like you're doing here. It developed into a community. That really helped us, because when you invite people over, then you have to be up for it. And if you invite people over regularly and your house becomes a place where people are coming to be Krishna conscious, then you have to be ready. And that helps, because it's easy enough by degrees to slip away from a practice, or just to not be as strict. So if you're teaching others, or if you're inviting others, then that tends to keep the energy up really high. And the other thing was, we kept doing our services. She started in New Dwarka, Los Angeles, and she had, one of her services was, from the very beginning, was cooking the feast for the Rath Yatra. And so she headed up that project, and even when we moved to Northern California, she'd always go back, and I'd go back to help her do her service there of cooking for the Rath Yatra feast, which takes about a week of cooking. And then I kept my service, which was to distribute books. In fact, one of the reasons that we live where we do now is because at the time, in America, we had the freedom to go into airports, and I could distribute books there, like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam and all the other books. And our house is only 7 minutes away. So actually, we made the decision based on the fact that it would be easy access, and I'd go out every day and do that. And so that's another principle. We codified it by saying your seva will save you. And that really has helped us over the years. And also, I liked what Nirkula said about setting goals. We take time every year to take a retreat and talk about our lives, where we are now. We had missed a year because we started doing another program, a youth yatra, where we take young people to the Dham. And that was the time when we used to take our retreat, so we didn't get that anymore. We skipped it for a year and a half, I think. And when we actually had our retreat last year, we were surprised that actually we were the age we are now, because we hadn't even noticed previously. We kind of were busy, and then we noticed, hey, we're old, and we better do something about it. Which is, when we started setting goals for this part of our life, which we like to give the metaphor of the bell lap in track and field. Like if you run a mile, it's 4 times around the track. And they have a person with a big bell. And after your 3rd lap, because when you're running, it's hard to know what lap you're on, because you're using all your oxygen, not necessarily for your brain. And then they ring the bell and they say, this is it. So we hear that bell. And we know this is the time that we should be paring down and really using whatever assets we've gained from our spiritual master and from the great devotees we've met over the years, and whatever else has contributed to our momentum, is to focus that now in the last part of our lives. So that's the kinds of things we do. That's a principle we have to work by goals every year to see how we're doing. Thanks for asking. Any other thing? You can ask whatever you want. Go ahead. You just have such a nice smile, I thought I'd try calling on you. Yes?
Mother, Mansuli's mother.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. These days, we notice that with the complicated modern lifestyle, it becomes quite a challenge to keep the daily program, the morning program, steady and going, doing the minimum and making sure it's at least to some bare quality. So how do we improve or become more fixed, although despite the challenges and the ups and downs of working in the modern world?
Well, consistency is king. And Prabhupada used to say, and he made this motion with his hand, drops a day, wear a stone away. And in times when you're busy or there's some emergency, it's good to have a minimum that you don't go below so that you keep the streak going. Streaks are really powerful because material nature does churn, and it's like when you do deity worship, there's a certain number of articles that you can offer, and there's a minimum also. I know at certain times in my life, in worshiping the deity, I had more luxury time to do more elaborate kinds of pujas, putting all of in fact, in the padditis you could install every item before you do the puja. You do puja to the puja paraphernalia, really, this. You worship the bell, you worship the conch, they each get a flower petal with chandan on them. There's mantras for this, mantras for that. And it's really nice. But then maybe other times in your life when you can offer incense, a lamp, and a flower, and some boga. So there's a little flex there, but the main thing is to find out what you won't go below, like 16 rounds. And string that together. Don't have big expectations for certain times and make sure you finish your minimum. That's very helpful to keep the streak going. And then when you do get more time, then you can really take advantage of it. Like just now, we're coming back from Vrindavan. And for the last 25 years, we've been going to Govardhan Hill for Kartik. And we spend the Kartik there reading Bhagavatam. We do 6 hours a day of hearing Bhagavatam. And now lots of people are coming. We have a setup there where there's a little amphitheater and a television, thanks to Chakadola. And it's really nice. And at this time of our life, we can do that. A few years ago, more than a few, we didn't have time to do that. Well, actually, my wife covered for me a lot because her business was really successful. And a lot of times, I do things that she couldn't participate in. That's how supportive she's been over time. We kind of see it as a tag team also. You know, in the Hari Bhakti Vilas, there's a statement about fasting on Ekadashi. And he says, if you can't fast for some reason, you're infirm, you can ask somebody else to fast for you. And I used to fast all the time on Ekadashi. In fact, I didn't even drink water, but there were at least 8 people who called me ahead of time and say, can I sign up for your thing? And you know, when you're in a household relationship, there's certain times one can do more than the other. It's like at Govardhan Hill too. We see during this time of year, everyone's doing the Dandavat Parikram. Did you all do a Dandavat Parikram this year? You've seen it though, right? You know what it is? They do a circumambulation of Govardhan Hill by paying obeisances flat. And they put a stone down where where their hands were, then they get back up, they do another Dandavat like that. They go all the way around. We see tag teams out there. There's husband and wife teams. There's whole families. In fact, India is so amazing because, I mean, who has the wherewithal to do a Dandavat Parikram anyway? But in India, you see people bring their whole family. The kids are there too, and they're in America they bring kids to Disneyland, and everybody looks disappointed afterwards. When they do Dandavat Parikram here in India, everyone looks ecstatic. I've never seen anybody frustrated, tired, angry, or anything like that doing that kind of thing. So the point is, what was the point? What question am I answering? Yeah, so find ways, this is another means of consistency when you have a relationship, that one can take more of the maintenance side, the other one can take more of do the spiritual side, but husband and wife are one person actually, according to the Shastra. When you're married, you become one. And so you work together like that, and you can sort of tag team it. Consistency is king. Yeah.
So what if either of the couple is not
Just a second.
inclined toward this spiritual journey?
What if the one person that happens a lot. Happens a lot.
So it becomes difficult for one person to move on this path alone, I would say.
That's true, yeah,
So the
it's
kind
harder.
of,
It can be harder.
Yeah.
But we see that it's not uncommon. It happens a lot.
So what we can...
Well, a couple
what can be
things I
done?
could say, do's and don'ts. One is that what we've seen is in our community, we have a community in Silicon Valley. And over the years, we've been there since 1999. And we've seen so many, I'll give some anecdotal evidence, and then we'll try to talk like in a more general way, develop some principles. But we've had numerous couples, 3 I'm thinking of right now, where husband and wife, they're young, and the 3 wives, and they were all friends, they're very interested in getting initiated and really making advancement, and the husbands were not. In fact, one of them had to kind of sneak around to do seva. And now both husband and wife are married, are initiated. And over time, the husband's decided oh, this is a pretty good lifestyle, and maybe we'll do it too. It was infectious, and they got into it later. Some of them it took maybe 10 years, right, before, you know, that changed. And sometimes it's vice versa, that, you know, the husband's in, the wife's not, whatever. That can happen, and does a lot. One principle is we find if one's in and the other isn't, it's good not to push the other one. Better to be flexible and set an example. Because we find almost invariably, if one or the other pushes the other one, or even, you know, passive aggressive, kind of like you should be doing this, what's wrong with you kind of thing, then the other one goes further away and doubles down and becomes calcified that I'm definitely not doing this. And so if you do the other way, and you just tolerate, everyone has some complex situation in their life, and if you're in one of those, set an example and do the best you can in the relationship. And oftentimes when you do that, the partner decides, you know, well, this is not a fanatical thing because you're not pushing me. And, you know, may warm up to the idea and then think like, yeah, I can go with you to the temple. And then next thing you know, they'll hear somebody and they'll go, well, I don't like anybody else, but I like that person, and I can resonate with this. These things happen a lot. And then, of course, there are cases when the other person never comes around. And those are cases you have to look at and see, you know, individually what to do about that. Any advice? Yeah.
I'm a little dull-headed tonight, more than usual. Just by being tolerant and being patient, and everybody has their own speed, and you know, as my husband said, sometimes the other partner doesn't take it up, but if you look at the positive, or you know, if you know someone who is in that kind of a situation, and look at the positive, what are they doing? If it's the wife who's not into it, but yet she's doing your laundry and she's cleaning, taking care of the household and taking care of the children, you can see that as being supportive in your devotional life. And if it's the husband and he's, you know, got a job and he's supporting the family and, you know, he helps around the house or whatever he does, you just have to look for the positive and be a positive example, because when we come to Krishna consciousness, I found that our friends who don't join or our family members who don't join, they're really watching us to see how we're affected by becoming a devotee, and to see our good qualities. You know, if we have any, we're being more scrutinized. That's been my experience. So if we can see the positive and be grateful for what we do have with our partner, if they're not participating, that's really helpful too.
Yeah, it's an important question. Thank you. Damodar? Okay, Damodar's got it.
Go ahead.
In Grasta life. Oh, okay. Hare Krishna, Maharaj, Mataji, Dandavat Pranam. Question I have is, okay, in Grasta life, how do you deal with teenage children who are not Krishna conscious?
Well, we don't have children, we don't have biological children, but we work with kids a lot. I mentioned the youth yatra, and actually you have to turn that off now, because it's I learned a lot from being connected with this kind of Silicon Valley, because it's a 99.9% Grihastha community. Maybe now it's 98%. Because we have a brahmachari ashram there also. But I didn't have a lot of experience being around kids, especially I was the youngest in my family, and then I became a brahmachari. What did I know about kids? I was always the kid in the group. But having watched the children grow up, and there's a lot of them. We have hundreds of babies even now, and many that have grown up, and we've been there with them since the beginning. We've done their grain ceremonies. Nirkula's been with a lot of them when the mothers gave birth, and so forth, and we've watched them. You get to see them grow up and be around them, and we've seen such a miracle that it's, to us, it's the most valuable asset and the most important investment to give time and energy to the children, because when they grow up having encouragement spiritually, they are really powerful. So we have done some research in what really makes kids excited about Krishna consciousness. First of all, we've realized that every soul has to make an independent decision. No formula covers everything, because ultimately it's a free choice, whether it's husband, wife, or kids. And there has to be something inside where they say, no, I'm doing this myself, not because my parents are doing it or anybody else. But what we have found is that when kids are surrounded by other kids, by peers that are doing well, they gravitate towards it. And therefore our mantra has been, the success comes from peers, seeing peers doing great. So we try to create environments in which the young people from early age have facility to be around people their own age, kids their own age, where they're doing Krishna conscious activities. And we have as an example, we're doing, after we go back to America, we're coming back here again in December to do our annual youth yatra. We're taking about 70 kids down to the temples in South India. And they're 14 to 24. And we've seen that when they get in the yatra and they see other kids that are there doing sadhana, even the ones who weren't doing sadhana, they start doing sadhana. And we've known personal cases where there were young people who were teens who grew up in devotee families with the best of association and everything, but they still weren't sure they wanted to be devotees. I mean, we interviewed them personally, so we knew all these things. But after the yatra, they changed their mind and they said, yeah, we're in. So just creating environments where kids can have peers who are doing great, we find is very important. And the other aspect is to have upward mobility for them, because we find these kids to be really intelligent when they're born into families that are following principles. They have purer minds than most and being raised and protected more. And if you give them opportunity to do services early-ish, or as possible, as soon as you can empower them, then they get invested in it and they have their own services to do. So those two things are really important. And it takes engineering these programs to make sure that there's a systemic way in which all the kids have full engagement from the time that they're out of the womb, or even in the womb. Because I know, like Kameshwari, who runs one of the kids programs, she said, we deal with kids from 0 to 25. Means they're still in the womb. And so those are a few thoughts about that. It's kids gravitate towards what the other young people are doing, mostly. If the parents tell them you should do this or that, there are rare cases where the kids will listen, but mostly it's like that's not who they want to follow necessarily. You're welcome. Oh, yes, Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna.
We are very recently introduced to Krishna conscious. We're just 10 months old in this society of Krishna consciousness.
Welcome.
We are taking Gita classes from one of your disciples, Nijdham Prabhu.
Oh,
Yeah. And my question to you is, when we go into this consciousness movement, how do we select a Diksha Guru?
well, what I notice is that, I mean, and my wife taught me this saying many years ago, not about Diksha Gurus, but just about people in general, is every pot has its lid. Like, how do people find somebody to marry? And you think, you're marrying that guy? Like, yeah, I really like him. It's like, all right. So, everyone has their preferences and their needs and so forth. But generally what I've found is those who have fertile hearts and are open and want to make advancement, their ears are wide open and they're trying to find somebody they resonate with. And generally, if somebody hears from somebody and they say, wow, that really, it just answered some burning questions I had, and you felt inspiration. And you felt like, wow, that's my ideal. I like that. That's one of the ways we find that people generally gravitate towards a Diksha Guru. But there are other ways as well. For instance, I have a close friend named Srivas Pandit. His wife is Malini Devi Dasi, appropriately. They're both disciples of Ramdal Swami, and they're pillars in our organization in California. And Srivas Pandit Prabhu told me that when he went to Chowpatty, when he was just getting involved in ISKCON, he didn't see his future Diksha Guru there, but he met everybody else and he saw how the place was organized, and he said, okay, whoever did this, that's who I want to follow, right? So he had that kind of inspiration to follow. And people have different needs. Sometimes people gravitate more towards a Diksha Guru who is, fewer disciples. Sometimes people gravitate to somebody who's on a larger stage, and already has lots and lots of disciples, and they don't feel like they need that closer family atmosphere. But they get it anyway because they have disciples. They'll resonate with the disciples. And so that brings it to the third way I see people find a Diksha Guru is they make friends with a devotee. They get inspired by devotees they're doing service with. And then, the conversation is there. It's like, well, who are you initiated by? It's like, such and such. It's like, oh, well, I want to be with you, so, there's combinations and permutations of all those types of things. But generally I find that, something sparks in people who are working on themselves in Krishna consciousness, and they feel like, yeah, that could really help me, or that person could, and that could be really, that's a common way that people become stimulated to ask somebody for Diksha. Yeah, hearing. So my wife is just saying, if you listen to a variety of people who are offering Diksha and you resonate, we find that it's important too, so that you have an idea of which kinds of people are there that are giving Diksha. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking, and welcome to Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Damodar.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you so much. I wanted to ask on behalf of common questions which Grihasthas face. So there are two categories of people generally there in cities. One is they realize in the old age that, okay, we have been doing like, you know, various kinds of spiritual practices like every Monday doing some Shivopasana, doing some Hanuman thing, and they're good pious people. They have their strong, and then when they meet, come in touch with Prabhupada की पुस्तकें आ गई, books of Prabhupada, लोग तिलक लगा के, then people are saying follow एकादशी, then their faith just get, I've seen it like बिल्कुल हिल जाते हैं अंदर से, they get shaken from the core as to, are you saying what I have been doing is not good? If you believe it, please smile, yeah? That I'm representing you, yeah? So, and then they try a lot to go towards what the Vaishnav Sanatan principles are and pick it up from there. But there's a time when that, whether to leave the previous things before taking the new things, that dichotomy exists for fairly most of the Indians living in a middle class, yeah. So how to solve so that they have an easy adoption of what Srila Prabhupada is trying to say, so that they internally don't feel I am doing something, leaving my old faith and picking the new faith. That's question number one.
Oh, thank you very much for such an important question. Service has a lot to do with how people want to assimilate. There are certain aspects of Krishna consciousness that are so universal and they're so viscerally pleasing and enlivening that when you have those elements, the philosophical points are not as important. So seva is very important because, as I said before, your seva will save you. And when we do service together, there's a sense of satisfaction. People just want to have some seva. Being able to do seva shoulder to shoulder with others who are interested in Krishna consciousness awakens a sense of satisfaction, which is impossible to get anywhere else. You can't be happy or satisfied in the material world. It's not possible. But as soon as you do seva, just seva for seva, you're doing it to please Krishna, you start to feel satisfied. And so oftentimes people who are doing seva, even though they might have some slight cultural, philosophical difference, it's like, all right, whatever, it doesn't matter that much because we're happy coming to do seva, we're serving prasadam and things like that. And when they start to develop friendships also with other devotees, and we've seen it when we started our program at our house, there was people would come over and they'd process a lot of what they're going through in their life with others. And it meant so much of that to them to be able to go someplace where they could be genuine and open and also get commonsensical, straightforward spiritual solutions to what they were going through. And when they started working, the solutions started working, which generally chant Hare Krishna and do seva. Then they gravitate towards like, no, we want to be there. And that overrides a lot of the other kinds of things. We have people at ISV, that's the abbreviation for our temple, ISKCON of Silicon Valley, who are even from other sampradayas. But they have seva, and they have friends. And who cares if their tilak's a little different? I mean, nobody cares because everyone's there for seva. And even sometimes, like I just experienced this recently, it was somebody who was so culturally tied to the Ramanuja Sampradaya that there was no way they were going to take initiation in the Gaudiya Sampradaya. But we don't care because they have seva and they chant Hare Krishna. I mean, Hare Rama is right there, so no problem, we got it covered. And that's the mood, really, of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He accepted everybody and wanted to uplift them with chanting and doing seva together. So those things really override a lot of the philosophical or just ritual differences in what we do. And then gradually, of course, by hearing, everything becomes clear. Prabhupada said when he started listening to his spiritual master, he couldn't understand everything he was saying. He said, but he kept listening and then it all became clear. I remember when I first came to the temple, I had read so many books on spirituality and was trying to figure it out. And none of them were very clear. When I saw deities, that was the first time I've ever seen deities in my life, from a completely Western background, obviously. And when I saw the deities, I was like, now what's this again? And by hearing in the association of devotees, I can remember the section of the Bhagavatam we were in when I was sitting in class, when the deities became attractive to me.
Wow.
And I can remember there was a shift. Krishna consciousness is real. It's not some artificial imposition on the mind. It's not an intellectual process, but it's a heart-to-heart connection with Krishna. So you just have to create the environment and invite people in without making discrimination, unless somebody comes to the program who has an agenda. That's part of what, at our programs, if somebody had their own agenda and they wanted to, twist other people around, it's like, why don't you come with me instead? Then we just didn't invite them back. We wanted a safe environment where everyone felt this is universal, we're all together in this, we all process Krishna consciousness together, and that seems to work.
This was very... Mata, you want to add?
Yeah. If I understand correctly, you were asking about the cultural and rituals that are for worshiping the demigods?
Yes, they're used to doing it,
Yeah.
and they get into, that's a big shift which happens.
Yeah. Well, the gopis worshipped Katyayani, but it was to get Krishna as a husband. And so if we please Krishna, we please all of the demigods. And so it's not like you're turning your back on that worship. I see it as, because you were so devoted to these particular entities, they've brought you to Krishna. And so now you can worship Krishna and they will be more than pleased. Because usually we go to the demigods for material things, right? So if you go to Krishna, even for material things, he'll take care of it all, and the demigods will be pleased.
And going to your point about the demigods bringing people to Krishna, that's one of the subject matters of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, written by Sanatana Goswami. That Kamakya Devi was the family deity in Assam area of the protagonist of the story, Gopakumar, and he has a dream that the family deity of Kamakya Devi, one of the manifestations of Durga, was inviting him to take a Gopal mantra. And she said, chant this mantra, it'll fulfill all your desires, and it was for Gopal. So that's the story, one of the main stories of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, that the mantra brought him back to Godhead. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he went to South India, he didn't avoid going to demigod temples. When we say, what we say is a misconception is to consider the demigods equal to or independent of Krishna. So it's not like we say, oh, demigods are nothing. No, they're servants of Krishna. They're very important. But we just understand the principle of watering the root. And I think that Nirkulad makes a good point. It's the attitude in which we present to new people who are used to a certain way. There's a way that you can really, it can be jarring for people if you're too abrupt and you don't give the context for it, who the demigods are. And of course we worship the demigods. Why wouldn't we? They're part of Krishna. But, go to Krishna and the demigods will be more pleased as well. That's a better message than just like, oh no, you can't do that. Then people are like, well, my grandmother did it. And she's like a fantastic person, so what are you saying? You have to be careful how you present things, right? Yes. He's trying to win the 1,000 rupees.
I turned it off.
Yes, ma'am. If anybody wants to take a question, I can ask later. Anybody wants to take a question? So thank you so much. So far, when I summarize, we talked about teenage children, correct? And what we learned, Prabhuji. I'm just trying to summarize so that, this is outstanding class. So what we are saying is create a positive environment rather than creating, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. Rather create a positive example with people who are doing it and get the right company around so that the rubbing effect happens and the kids get inspired to do more. That's a practical advice I hear. Then on people who are like, say, for example, 50 plus, and they have been used of doing certain things, and because Krishna consciousness is thriving in India, there's a lot of, everybody hears about how Hare Krishna movement / ISKCON is growing, and then when they see that chant Hare Krishna only, leave the tea, do Ekadasi, all those kinds of things which comes together with that. Correct? It takes a time, but what we are saying is don't get discouraged. Get into a seva and then get some seva on that and continue to grow together with that. Correct? That was the principle, Prabhuji, on the...
It is, and I'll substantiate it by Shastra. In fact, one of Prabhupada's major points was following the footsteps of Rupa Goswami, who said, Yena tena pakarena mana Krishna niveshaya. And what this means is, when you're preaching Krishna consciousness, the first principle is to help people remember Krishna. And then come rules and regulations come later. Don't lead with, you have to do this, don't do that. But lead with the positive, which is remember Krishna. That's what Krishna does in the Bhagavad Gita. Twice he says, Man mana bhava bhakto, just think of me. And from that, the other principles will come. I'll give you an acute example of this. Was when Prabhupada first came to America. He was very lenient with people because he understood it was a different culture. In fact, he writes about this in his purports in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that if he came here demanding all kinds of intricate, adjustments to people's culture, they wouldn't take to it. So, as you know well, when Prabhupada gave the first initiations in New York City, he didn't tell them about the 4 regulative principles. You know that, right? It came afterwards. They came back and it was posted. It said, oh, by the way. And even after that, it took them a while to come up to that speed. Shyamasundar himself told how he was still smoking cigarettes. And Prabhupada just said, he told them, just smoke one fewer cigarette every day, until you get there. He didn't ostracize him or embarrass him or anything like that. The main thing that he emphasized was think of Krishna. And then by the power of thinking of Krishna, by chanting Hare Krishna and doing seva, people Krishna helps from within the heart. Tesham satati yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddha yogam tam yena mamupayanti te. Krishna says, I help those who are sincere by giving them the path, the intelligence, how to follow it properly. Prabhu, you got more, go ahead. Where does microphone go?
I'm so happy today. I'm getting all my friends which I was thinking they should come and they have arrived. So
Yay!
thank you so much. And maybe we'll chance for you to meet with Prabhu. Yeah. So we were discussing about, Grahastha Ashram. We talked about, your history, about how you both came together. And the intent was to have a very clear game plan on why we are getting married and how we'll help each other to remember Krishna or to serve Guru together. I think that's a very good takeaway. What I was also thinking about was uh, where to draw a line in terms of, say, for example, sometimes it looks very daunting to read full books. I'm asking questions, and sometimes it looks very daunting to start 16 rounds. How can I do? Like, take so much of hours. How do we actually untangle that part, saying that, how do we do that?
The first thing is to study the mantra, to find out what it is. There's ample information, and it's all very encouraging. For instance, the Bhagavatam starts in the very first chapter. The sages at Naimisharanya acknowledge the holy name as the means by which one is going to contact Krishna. And they say, Apana samsritim goran yanama vivashogranam tata sadyo vimucheta yad bibheti swayam bhayam. That if you want to contact God immediately, you say his name. And he said, if you're in fear, just say his name. Because fear personified is afraid of Krishna. And it says, if you want to get out of samsara, say his name. And throughout the Bhagavatam, we get these benefits-based marketing for the holy name. In other Puranas as well. For instance, the famous verse that says, Nama Chintamani Krishnas Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nityamukto Vinatvam Namanamino. And that is, Krishna's, these are several of the qualities of the name of Krishna. It's a Chintamani stone, means that whatever it touches, it turns it into something valuable. And it's alive, it's not a regular sound vibration. And so forth. It goes on from there to telling all the benefits from chanting. So my point is, first, when you study the mantra and find out what it is, and the mind becomes attracted. So one statement Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes at the end of his bhajan, Aruna Doya Kirtan, the song that you sing when the sun's coming up. And he says, Nam bina kichunahiko ora choda bhuvana manje. So there's nothing else to be had in the 14 worlds except the holy name. Hey, think about that. When you chant and your mind thinks, yeah, maybe I'll go somewhere else. How about checking my emails or something like that? But when your mind has become fixed on the idea, it's like, you want to enjoy, right? Yeah, it's all in the name. When you have that clear idea of what the Nam Tattva is, that Krishna is fully present in his name, and it will actually satisfy you. Why do you think people advertise? I mean, how do they sell Coca-Cola? It's sugar water. But they keep showing pictures of people like, they're like, yeah, I want to look like that guy. You know, he's got muscles. He's drinking this, and the wind's blowing in his hair, and there's a beautiful girl next to him. It's like, I want that too. That's what everyone wants, some type of enjoyment. So when we can understand that all enjoyment comes from the holy name, that spiritual enjoyment. In fact, the name Rama, Ramate Yogano Nante Satyananda Chidatmani Iti Rama Padena Su Param Brahma Patiyate. Yogis give up everything in the world for Rama because their pleasure is so much. You can't do it artificially. These are aspects of studying the name carefully, because then when you think about it, it's like, where else would I want to go? And then 16 rounds is not enough. And of course, it takes practice. It's attention training. It's really good for us because generally the mind is full of rajas because of what we're exposed to now. And we may not even be aware of the fact. Are you aware of the fact that if you look at reels, R-E-E-L-S, that's a thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. How long are they?
30 seconds or 1
30 seconds? And then there's ones that are 10 seconds. And I noticed that there are just clips now It makes no sense. It just cuts right in the middle of something and it doesn't even go anywhere. It's just something to spin the mind. And when we sit down to chant, it's like, more than 10 seconds? But we can, the human mind has neuroplasticity. And it's very beneficial to take time every day to test yourself. I just talked to a professor last week. His name is David Cresswell. He's at Carnegie Mellon University, and he's done extensive research on meditation. And it's his main subject. His whole department there is funded in investigating the power of the mind, especially stimulated through meditation, and how it can cure the body of diseases and so forth. And he talked a lot, when we talked, we only had a half an hour for the first conversation, but he talked a lot about how everyone needs some attention training because we're so distracted nowadays. So it needs a little context. If you just give somebody a bead bag and say chant, they may not know how to chant because there's two levels of chanting. You want to know what they are?
Yes.
One where you're paying attention and one where you're not. And there's a huge difference between the two, the effects, and it's real because where our attention goes, our energy flows. And it's absolute torture to try to do it without paying attention because you're in two places at once. If you've ever written an essay, you have to actually sit down and write it, right? Anybody? Back me up on this?
Yes.
And you do everything in the world to avoid writing it, because who wants to sit down and stare at a blank piece of paper? It's like, what am I going to write? You actually have to think about it, and you have to write it. But once you get into it and it starts to flow, then you think, I don't want to stop writing. In fact, I'm going to turn this into a book, because that's where you get. So we have to learn to get to that place when we're chanting our japa. It's not like just get into the room and do it. Of course, you can do that, and over time, maybe you'll be successful. You have to set yourself up for success. So we have these programs I have for youth. Every Wednesday, they come together, call it Japa Jolt. It's a 45-minute sprint in japa, and it's couched in remembering what the holy name is and so forth. And at our temple, we get together and we have a japa circle. I call it Make Japa Great Again. And I even have a red hat that says that. And we sit in a circle, and rather than just jump in and chant, we talk a little bit about it. And what's the holy name? I have quotes from Prabhupada. I think this is very helpful. You have to treat it like science, learn the science, and practice it until you break through. Because if you break through when you're chanting and you say, oh, I think I heard the name. You can hear it once, twice, 3 times, and then you don't want to stop. And you get to the end of your rounds and think that wasn't enough. Then you're making an advancement. And that's got to happen. Because otherwise, we can't be chanting and not be present and think that we're going to get a taste. Yes, please.
But as Premanand Maharaj, he says that in your grihast duties, like you may not have that kind of time in your hand. So while cooking or while doing other chores, if you are taking God's name, it's still considered by Krishna. It's still taken into consideration, that japa.
Every time you utter the holy name, it's taken into consideration.
Yeah.
There are many, many verses like that even if somebody says it derisively, Krishna counts it. He's like, okay, he said it, that's all right. But he blasphemed you, and it was like, yeah, it's all right, no big deal. He'll take it. You do it musical entertainment. So, but there is a time, japa is a kind of self-discovery, and to test ourselves and see where am I today, and where am I in general. We should take some time to do that every day, besides going on chanting all the time. That's another thing, is practicing chanting while you're cooking, driving, this, whatever. Just keep the vibration going constantly. But there can be a focus time, and I was going to give an example that Chaitanya Charan gave. The great orator and devotee, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu? He gave this example that, sometimes people get a membership to a gym, like around January 1st. And it's like, I'm going to go in and I'm going to get in shape. I'm going to lift weights and run on this belt and the whole thing. So then they go in, they try the first day, they come home and they're a little sore. And they think, well, it's a good idea. I should go back. But lifting the weights is, it's a little much. So they go in and then they just lift their arms like this. And they don't hold any weight. So he said, chanting without trying to be attentive is like that. I'm going to the gym because, anyway, my wife saw me drive down the driveway. I'm not coming back, so I better go. I'm sitting here chanting. I might as well look busy. But then you miss the whole thing because you're just going like this. You try to enter into it. And no doubt, it's a busy life. And certain eras in our life are busier than others. But even if you can do a shorter amount of time where you really try to test yourself, see, can I sit and chant? Can I hear one mantra? That kind of thing. Those breakthroughs are invaluable. And they're things that we have to use our own determination and effort to achieve. Very much done. Ho gaya.
Can we do 10 minutes Kirtan, Prabhu?
Yeah,
Yeah?
we can try.
You
Yeah.
want Damodarastakam?
Yeah, we can do Damodar after that, if it's okay.
Okay, we'll do a little kirtan.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
Is my Madunga player here? Where is he? Yeah. What? He's here.
Does he know what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Come, Prabhu.
He's my main man. He knows when it's time to play Madunga. Is there a harmonium?
Yes. Udhar Tamiji, na?
Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine. You got a table? This is all right. Paschata Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Go Premanande, Hare Hare Bo, Shri Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki Jai, Shri Hari Nam Mahamantra Ki Jai. Go Premanande. Damodar Ashtakam. I think I'll sit down for that. Will it be in anybody's way if I sit here? Okay. Sudhir, do you have? Thank you.
We'll do it individually today. Yeah.
Thank you. He's probably looking for it, so you might have to tell him.
It's okay because there's flowers individually. Karuna and Madhu. What we can do is while the Damodar happens, maybe first the ladies can do it. Yeah. And then once the ladies are done, then the kids can.
You got anything you put underneath this? You need a little higher. Is it possible?
Yeah. Yes. Okay.
Is there another kartalis in the house? Somebody can keep beat? Do you mind playing this on the downbeat? I need somebody to play this who knows how to keep a rhythm. Oh, that's not going to hold it, is it?
Yes.
Okay. It's a little. What? You want me to teach you how to play tambourine? It's like you hit the heel of your hand like this, and it's only on the downbeat. Or that's a little more advanced. Can you try that? Nama Vishwaram Sakshi Ananda Rupa Vasat Dalango Pule Vajana Yashoda Viyoluka Radhavamana Vayam Deva Moksham Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Shri Damarashtakam ki jai, Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If so desire, please empower us to spread Krishna consciousness and the chanting Hare Krishna to every apartment. And what's the name of the town?
Magarapata,
Magarapata.
Amanora.
Amadora. May everyone in the entire complex start chanting Hare Krishna.
Hari Hari.
And then we take the chanting to downtown Pune with 10,000 people.
Jai!